And today I'm probably gonna go. I'm gonna go to the office today. Oh, hi. Hello. We are live. Uh, we're gonna go to the office there and pick up a laptop. Hello, Africa office hours. How are you? And hello, Cobus. Uh, I don't hear you. It may be me. 1 second. Um, it's not me. My audio works. This doesn't work. Let's give it a moment. Maybe people join in and maybe they can say if you can hear us or not. Let me actually join on Twitch to see if this is actually audible. Okay, we are live. I think you're not audible, Kobus, even on Twitch. So something is wrong with your, yeah.
Sorry.
Something is wrong with
That should be fine. There's this little flashy red light over here that's just below my peripheral vision. It's got this weird thing saying MUTE. I think it's mute.
I'm not sure what that
that
means,
was fun.
But okay.
Yeah, cool.
That's fine.
Okay, so we are live again. Welcome if anybody's popped into the channel yet. It does take a few seconds for them to reflect here. Let's just double check. Boom, 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 boom. Everything looks fine. Everything looks live. We are on all the channels. Welcome everyone to the weekly AWS Africa office hours. We run this session every Thursday between, it just started now, depending on which time zone you're in. You can see at the bottom there, I've got the West African time, Central African time, South African time, and then also East African time. I love that eat time because it feels like you can eat the whole time. Yes.
East Africa time is basically, it's Kenya and that region, right?
Yeah, it's Kenya's is in the middle of eat, and then Nigeria is in the middle of wet, and then South Africa technically could be 2 time zones because there's an hour about time difference given the width of South Africa between Cape Town and Joburg and Pretoria, but that would confuse people because then South Africa would have 3 time zones, which will be Cape Town time, Joburg time, and African time. Because in general we are like on times. I suppose you've heard of all the now and just now jokes.
Now and just now. Okay, I have not.
So it's a fun one. So when the South African person tells you like, I'll do something now, it means anything between now and a week or so from now. And if I say I'll do it just now, it means it'll be in the next few months. Or it's a very imprecise. It basically means I'm not doing it right now, but I should do it soon-ish. So
okay, I get it. Yeah. We have a similar saying in Serbian. We say we will do it from Sunday, and that literally means never. People try to do it, but that never happens. But in Germany, in my experience so far, those kind of things don't exist. In Germany,
the Germans are very
something. If you commit to a timeline, you commit to a timeline. So it's a bit of a different approach here, I say.
Cool. So for those that have joined us now in the last minute or two, I can see a couple on the stream. This is a session where we basically answer technical questions. So the whole point of this discussion is throw technical questions at us and we will try and answer them for you. If we can't answer them, we will try and get back to you as soon as possible once we get those answers. And to kick things off today, while people warm up and send us some questions, Oh, sorry, there was a bit of feedback there. Darko's been muting himself. There we go. I actually had 2 different PHP questions, 3 in total, that came up in the last 2 to 3 weeks. The first one, or the first 2 are kind of related. The first one being how to set up a build job for WordPress using CodeBuild. That's something I still have to do a short video on, but basically it's definitely doable and not that hard. Slightly more interesting one is that I want to move off a VPS, which is virtual private server. It's one of those shared environments where you've got access to the host to a certain level and you've got cPanel installed. They're used to that kind of environment and they say they want to take that and move that to AWS. And similarly, the other question was around how do I get a PHP site on running on AWS? So they're couple of ways you can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now my question to those kind of people, maybe to you as well, when they say they want to move away from VPS, does that mean that they also want to just do like a one-to-one migration and just be happy with it, or they do wish to be cloudish or more cloud focused? Because that's a very big difference.
Yeah. No, so it's literally just they want to move it as is. It's just how do I get hosted on AWS because it'll work out cheaper and more reliably, as a bottom line. So we actually have, hey, Arcane's back. Hey, Arcane.
Arcane and
As
Kanye,
well as
hi.
and Kanye here. Yeah, two regulars.
Yes.
And yes, Arcane, light sale, definitely. That is the easiest way. It's I think about 5 clicks to get a WordPress instance up and running. And then, so very, very good suggestion.
But also
And
Elastic Beanstalk.
yeah,
I think Elastic Beanstalk will offer a relatively managed-ish solution. Would be kind of a better approach to this. I think. I may be wrong, but depending on how much. So here's the thing: is this a single website, single WordPress thing on VPS?
yes.
And if so, do they want to manage the database, right? If not, then maybe like something like, because Elastic Beanstalk can definitely can deploy a database for you, right? So Elastic Beanstalk can include an RDS or relational database service part of its stack, right? Sohan asks, where do I start with IAC?
Oh, that's a very loaded question. Well, other than the text editor, you
Open
start
up your
with
text
this.
editor.
No. You open up your browser and you go to this weird show that has 2 episodes a week called Bean Streaming. And there are these two weird guys on it that talk a lot about infrastructure as code.
Maybe see it in my background.
Yeah. So just quickly on that. So someone is on our team as well. So for infrastructure as code, literally a good way to start is Dark and myself are doing about 3 hours worth of live streaming every week, Mondays and Fridays. At an hour before what it is now is when we kick off. So whichever time zone you are in. And then we are currently building out an ECS cluster production ready with best practices built in using the CDK. And we are moving towards adding the CDK that spins up the infrastructure for the cluster inside a CI/CD pipeline as well. Because we want to do the full, this is how you go from nothing to everything. And we also publish the code online as well. So please join us for that. Let's quickly see here.
Latency issues. Pazue. There's a question from Mr. Pazue. Lightsail has latency issues. I don't find it having latency issues. Depending on maybe which region you launch Lightsail in, that could be a cause for it, or whether you're using a content delivery network, CDN, or not. But in general, it's the same platform as EC2, right? So
Yeah. So I've also not heard about that. So I mean, if you can send us some more info on that, that'll be great.
oh, we have some.
Yay, we've got
Isabel.
Isabel joining us. Let's quickly add her to the stream.
Hello,
Welcome.
Isabel.
Hey, hello everyone.
Hello.
Welcome.
What did I miss?
You missed PHP. You missed VPS. But we're still talking about it. Migrating a WordPress site from VPS to AWS. That's the question of the day.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Migrating
Yeah.
WordPress should be straightforward.
Exactly.
Relatively, how highly available do you want it? Because that does get into quite an interesting one where you start using EFS for sharing the config between multiple nodes, and then also put in some it's not a memcache, Redis for the caching.
Oh, you're going
and
like
also
full.
enterprise level.
Cool.
Because the only WordPress good enough is the enterprise level WordPress, right?
Of course.
If you're gonna do it, just do it with everything.
Exactly.
There is actually a solution already with a CloudFormation template somewhere.
Yeah, I saw it. It's a very complex solution. Like it's a multi-master auto-scaling group, Redis. But to be honest, if you have a massive scale, like I know some companies that use WordPress internally for like massive blog posts and platforms, and they need the scalability and the high availability of WordPress. I see no reason why not to do that. It's an effort, right? But I think that's fine. But for simple one-to-one migrations, we kind of discussed like I think Lightsail does a great job. Now, just for Lightsail, I think because the WordPress instance actually comes with a database on it, right? Yeah, it does. If you launch Lightsail with a WordPress instance,
Yep.
there is a database
DB
built
on
on
those.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
But one interesting thing that I've actually seen in the past is that you can, with WordPress now, there's a mechanism to say generate the public site for me. And if you only have, for example, your posts in the database, there's no other like interaction that you need the DB for. You can actually export the whole WordPress site as a static site as well,
yes,
which is super useful. And then you pipe that into Amplify. So that's actually worth
you get a
doing.
serverless WordPress, and that's how it works. You can
Serverless is very cheap.
Exactly. But it's for specific use cases. So I think there's also I've seen a solution or something online regarding a serverless WordPress deployment. It's basically your serverless, your website is being served through S3 slash some Lambda functions, but your CMS is on demand. So the CMS portion of it, basically you spin it up in a container or something like that, and then you write your blog post, and as soon as it's published, it kind of generates it and just goes away. So that's a really neat way to do it.
Nice.
Should actually do a video on it. Shotgun.
Go for it. I'm not a WordPress person. My first blog ever was in WordPress. No, Blogger. Wow, it was Blogger. Does Blogger
my
exist
God.
anymore?
Good question.
I did.
I was thinking the same.
Oh, that little bee
Blogger
icon. I remember that. Yeah, everybody had them at one point.
Orange, right?
Yeah.
But given that we're not giving away our ages, except for you youngsters, let's do a round of intros again for the people that have joined us, because I see we've had a bit of a spike now. So we will start with you, Isabella.
Oh, so yeah, my name is Isabella Orisa or Isabella, depending on what country I'm in, I guess. Yeah, and I'm a developer advocate at AWS since quite recently. Since end of April, I joined Cobus and not Cobus. Oh my God, it's not Cobus. I love it.
It's not Cobus.
And Darko. Yeah, I love it. But yeah, before I was a technical account manager, and maybe I can talk about that later if someone is interested in knowing what's that about.
Absolutely. My name is Darko, or I'm actually not Cobus. I'm a developer advocate as well, the same as this person right here, and Isabella. We work in the same team. I'm based in Berlin, Germany. I cover Central Eastern Europe and Russia. And yeah, my job is to, as all three of us, is to entertain and educate at the same time. So that's one of the things we need to do. So, and yourself, Cobus.
Me, I am the developer advocate for Sub-Saharan Africa. And name is Quibus, not Darko, even though we literally just got off a call earlier where one of my teammates confused us. Not like real confused, it's just like slip of the tongue. I'm going to leave it at that. And also, when I'm in the US, I let people call me Chris, because for some reason, Quibus, that side is, they struggle to pronounce it. And in German, Quibus is a pumpkin. So you can also call me Pumpkin if you wanted.
I did not know that that's the... Wow,
I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Now that you
And if you really wanted to get formal, you can use my middle name, which is Hercules.
Hercules, wow.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, so welcome everybody. The idea here today is that we will answer technical questions and we will continue talking about them until from ones we've had from customers during the last week or so. So please throw questions at us and we'll start discussing them. So since you haven't been on now for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks, what have you encountered the last while that was interesting, Isabel?
Yes.
Me, I don't know. I've been doing so many different things. I've been doing a lot of data, and I've been talking a lot about data lakes. This keeps being a thing. I thought it could somehow like lose momentum, and I'm surprised it's still like one of these buzzwords, and there is still a lot of companies building data lakes, and there is also this new-ish now, because months, I guess it's not new anymore at the speed of change, of the lake house approaches. I don't know if you've heard about it. Yeah, the lake house. And I always say, I was having a conversation with Javier the other day, and he said it in Spanish, which is I think it's similar. In English, it also means like having a house in the lake, right? Lake house. And we were kind of joking, like, it's going to be interesting when someone has to go and ask for a budget because they want to build a lake house. I would love to, if someone is going to do that, please record it. Please record a video of the expression of, leadership. Like, say what again? You need budget for what?
Budget for a lake house. Wow.
Yep.
I actually had a slide for that at some point that I found on one of our decks that's quite nice about it. But I think the reason for it is that it's literally you combine your data warehouse and your data lake. And we've released a lot of features in the last year or more that allows you to, so you've got, let's say, Redshift on the one side for your data warehouse with structured data where you know the shape is. And you've got your data lake on the other side with S3 and Athena and all the tools on top of that with your data. But now we're building tools for both sides to do cross queries across all the different data sources and federated queries. So Redshift can query S3 and DynamoDB and SQL databases. So can some of the stuff on S3 side. So you've got this whole interesting scenario where everything is accessible pretty much from everywhere. So the lines are getting very, very blurry. And obviously it boils down to what works for the best scenario that you're dealing with. Because I know with Redshift, and maybe you can correct me with there, is that because there are two ways to run it, where it's Redshift Spectrum versus normal Redshift. Where Redshift Spectrum is like on demand, queries the data. There's a cost per query where it loads it, but not a permanent flat line of cost. Then you get the cluster, which has got a base running cost. And there's this weird inflection where initially it's cheaper to just do the ad hoc. Then there's a whole chunk of time and content size that it makes sense to run your own cluster. And then at the very top, we actually see customers getting so large that the cluster is no longer able to handle all the queries at the speed and cost they want. And then they switch back again to the
well, we also release concurrency scaling for those customers that even farther. We decouple storage and compute with the RA3 nodes, which are like the newest, which are like so good for those scenarios where you need to like scale a lot of storage or where you need like those spike of compute demand, then you have concurrency scaling. So the combination of all these features, Redshift now is really when we say virtually unlimited, we're really aiming for that. We're really aiming for the one that challenges that, which is really cool. But yeah, I guess having all these different features and all these different components and all integrated allows for it's great flexibility. You can basically just fit whatever specific needs you have, which is great.
But RA3 instances are like, at least I remember last time I've had a chance to look at them, they were really expensive. Like there was only like, was it RA3?
It depends. Okay. It depends on how you do the translation, and depends on what you're using. Like if you're using, I don't remember if it's the DC2 or the DS2, but if you do the translation, you have to consider the resources that the RA3 instance provides.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying they're not cost effective. They're just a lot of money.
Well, but remember, if you're using an RA3 and you really don't need like that massive scale, then maybe it's like.
Remember, what we're talking about here is proper data warehouse, because if you look at just a normal relational database, that often serves a lot of the needs that you would have. You can get very far with just it. There's when you hit a certain data size and a certain data complexity that you need to go over to Redshift, where you start worrying about your column design and how the data is loaded with which columns and all that, because that's one of the big differences is Redshift is a columnar, I can never pronounce it, sorry, database where when you run queries, only certain columns are actually and off certain partitions are loaded based on your query, not the entire table type thing. And you need large data sets for where that difference comes in. And then also it becomes remember, there's a cost of how long does it take me to answer this question? Because it doesn't help if you can predict or know what people were doing, but it takes you 2 months to get that data. Then it's useless. Where it's worth throw more compute at it, and we get the answer in a day.
A lot of people confuse using a data warehouse for just using a database, because sometimes you may just need a database for all your
it's like
needs.
A big database.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes a big database does a job, right? So I'm by no means an expert in databases, but I had experience where people would like push for a data warehouse for like there's a 2 gigabytes of data. I'm like, okay.
We need more data than data warehouse. It's not
chuck it in memory and query it. Go for it. One thing that I have heard fairly recently, which was a super interesting use case, because I've never thought about this, is that so we know about data warehouses and we know about querying data and how useful that is to inside the company, right? We are also very aware of how many people are building different chatbots. For example, something that integrates with WhatsApp and allows you to get customer info data, but with an external-facing company that you deal with. And I spoke to someone, and they're busy building a chatbot for internal use that connects to their reporting and information like that. So, for example, if you want the latest financial stats, you can quickly pop off something to the WhatsApp bot, get that information. Or if you want the latest weekly sales stats or something, it'll send that back to you quickly, which is that to me sounds like super, super awesome. because it means like most people have got WhatsApp on their system, and because on the client, on the what do you call it, the serving side, you actually can see which phone numbers you're dealing with, and that way you can also then just whitelist the number or the numbers for people inside the corporation or something.
Yeah, but like, so let me ask a very noob question here. When querying data from a warehouse, how slow is it? Like, if I want to query some information,
Not slow.
Okay, exactly.
It's really fast.
But what makes it then different from a database?
So data warehouses. Oh, I love it. You have the good choice. I love this.
So
go ahead.
What would be the difference? Like, what would be the major difference between storing a data in the data warehouse and a database?
So Cobus was telling you about the columnar format, but the other super cool thing about Redshift is that it's an MPP, which means it's massively parallel processing. So when you have like massive queries, not only that that need to process a lot of data, but also that have very complex logic inside, it's great because in reality, what it does is the leader node compiles the code. So this is the first one, that it's compile code, which is more efficient, but also sends the nodes. It has like shared nothing architecture, which it means each node has a portion of the data, or depending on the distribution style, we could like really go deep here. But basically, it splits also the query, so it's processed in parallel. So not only the different queries are processed in parallel, but also parts of a query, if it's very big, or it needs to be split to process different parts of the data, it can run in parallel. So that's why it's important to understand. I always say, not only the number of nodes, but also the Redshift architecture, because each node has slices, is divided in slices, which is a portion also of like the memory, for example, which also and the storage, which allows for further parallelization. So that's why super complex queries that maybe in a database would take a while, in Redshift is like super, super fast. And it's like it's one of the many features and characteristic of Redshift. I don't know, when we say Redshift is a data warehouse, it is, but it's like, it's really, that's why I think we call it a modern data warehouse. And I think that the sense of that is because it goes beyond what that idea of the traditional data warehouse. It's not anymore that repository monolithic where you just store huge amounts of data. It provides like a lot of cloud-based features.
Yeah, because for me, like a data warehouse, when I hear data warehouse, it seems more closer to a data lake. When at least the term for it, like, oh, it's something slow. It's something that's, you store your data, you archive your data, and just do processing on top of it when you need it, right? But apparently, you can get your data quite fast, and I mean, it might not be millisecond latency to query data, but it can be. Okay, yeah. So
you have Go ahead, Cobus.
Yeah, sorry. I want to quickly jump in there with 2 points on that. The first one is that there's this concept of materialized views, where you set up a view that is backed by a query, and then you, when you set up a view, normally what happens is it runs a query in the background to actually then build it up from the most recent data in that shape that you want it. And that obviously being a normal query, even if you optimize it, there's still something that has to run against the data. Where materialized view is the same, except you set the frequency that query is updated and run. The rest of the time, it actually caches that data for you on the different mechanisms, sometimes in memory or sometimes on disk. And then it's just a straight, let me load that up directly, which obviously is very quick. And the second part is that why warehouses exist is, remember, in your normal relational databases, you've got your data in normalized form. Yeah. But for reporting, you tend to want your data in denormalized form. Now, the difference being is, for example, you've got a user that has a link to their address. Those are two different tables, where that join does take time and compute power to do, and disk read, where on the warehouse, what you do is put that next to each other because you know that's the shape that you want the data. So you take these normalized database tables and create multiple different tables with data in your warehouse ready for the reports that you want to run, because the requirements are different. You want to be able to read the data quickly and display it in a specific shape, where on the live side or the live transaction side, you want to be able to insert quickly and update quickly, effectively.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I guess that is also known as the difference between OLAP and OLTP, right? Analytics versus transactional. But it's a very good point, and it actually goes to what you were saying about columnar. Because on transactional, would you say you want to do a lot of inserts and deletes? So it's all these transactions. So because it's in row, it's great because you just find that row and just like delete or insert these rows. And physically on the storage, the data is written row by row. So it's perfect. You just like find the row and it's all the data is there all together, right? In columnar, this doesn't work so well because columnar means physically it's literally column by column. So all the values for each row for a column, which means if you have to do inserts and deletes in like you would do on a transactional database, well, that's gonna be costly because you need to go and find that value for all the columns for every for that row for every column, which it's not ideal. But if you're doing what Darko was saying, these big analytic queries where you maybe just need to query like a few columns, the data is all together because it's written all the columns. So it's just like the operations are super quick. So it depends on what you also need to do.
And
And
is this like, and would also apologize, would it be that you wouldn't do too much write actions on a data warehouse, right? I mean, when I say write, I mean no application will write into a data warehouse per se, right? The processing will happen on the database itself, on the data warehouse itself, but you will not have a external process keep on writing. It's mostly read when you want to generate things and reports, etc., right?
You use different patterns.
You use different patterns, yeah. Okay.
You would have your, so for transactions you can still have your transactional database, which makes
Okay.
sense, as you say, like
No,
every
absolutely,
tool
yeah.
for every job. And then for Redshift, you can do like you can use the copy command to do like ingestion, and it
Yeah.
actually, again, if you think if we go back to the architecture, it still uses that parallelization, so it will use all the slices. Obviously,
Right.
if you use the command in the right way and
Yeah.
you split, if you ingest data, if you ingest one file, then you're really not benefiting from that parallelization. But if you have like multiple files, you can ingest very, very quickly. So it's again
also, I think
remembering the
But
different
you wouldn't
tools,
write
how
to a
they
single
work.
column, right? Okay. Okay. Oh, that's cool.
You
I
couldn't
learned something
write.
today, so thank you.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you wouldn't write a single
I
piece of
think,
information,
Doc,
right?
let me read.
You write things in bulk, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you tend to do things in bulk, and it's actually with the warehouses, especially with Redshift, it's often more, or it's quicker to actually delete all the data and reinsert it than it is to try and upload it, or sorry, update it in place. It's a very interesting pattern. It's one of the biggest differences between normal DBs and Redshift when you deal on the warehouse side, and we're
Yeah, I mean,
talking about terabytes worth of data.
okay. I mean, we were talking about stupid databases. Sorry, not stupid databases. Weird ways to do databases, right? Route 53, etc. Like using RDS, using Redshift as a transactional database, for example, would be a waste of time. That's my kind of a question here. Like you don't do those.
No,
You
no,
don't
no.
write like a traditional transactional database. You just
I mean,
mostly read and generate views/reports. And when you write something, it's usually in bulk.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
more
mean,
for
not,
analytics is the use
Yes.
case.
nothing stops you from doing it. There's no thing that we say, oh, we see you doing one transaction a minute, therefore you're not allowed to do this. I mean, you
Yeah.
could obviously use it for that if you want to, but yeah, I wouldn't.
It's
Cool. We have another question here from Veliswa. Hi, Veliswa.
Hey.
Which is caching available for Redshift? Considering what would be a typical use case, non-transactional for Redshift, would it make sense to have caching? This is a fun one. The reason is that not only we do have those new R3A instances, we do have what was it called? Accelerated query. I can't remember what it stands for, but basically Aqua, which is another set of very customized nodes that sit between these R3A instances and the actual data. And they've got very fast SSDs and they've got FPGAs instead of normal CPUs. So field programmable grid arrays. So this comes to, you might have heard the term ASIC or ASIC before, which is application specific integrated circuit. Difference between the two is that those are like literally printed in one way only. Then one up you get the field FPGAs, which you can change the programming for, but they're still fairly optimized to run in a specific way. And then you get general purpose, which is CPU on the top. So FPGAs are then programmed to be very quick with specific tasks. And this is then where they help with the caching and processing of the data. So you can actually offload some of the queries onto them. For example, if you think about you've got a few terabytes of data and you want to sum the total of a column. There's nothing stopping you from saying each one of these nodes, do the sum operation on your node, and then send that up and then roll it up at the main instance that asked the question.
okay. I think Aqua. The way I've learned about it is and reinvented was like bringing the compute closer to storage, so you're kind of can do a lot more when it comes to processing much faster faster, closer to the storage part. Well, with dedicated chips or chips built for these kind of things. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
that they
think
can
when
do
it comes to the
a little
discussion
bit of
of,
processing.
yeah, I think when it comes to the topic of data storage and databases itself, I think a very great kind of a phrase we use is like purpose-built databases. Like there's not
Yeah.
a single database you can use. It's just so many different things for every different use case, and you should definitely pick the right one for the job. Like,
Yeah.
don't use just an RDS or a transactional database because you used to do that all the time. And I saw a book and code was like a SQL Server 2005. Back in 2005, you probably have a single server, a single SQL server running in your environment, and you would use it for everything. But I think now is so faster to do these things on and more simple to approach it, choosing any type of database you need. So
Yeah,
Gatorade, I wanted
that
to
is true.
correct you.
Yeah. So no, I was just corrected you on the side quickly. So I just like to throw those out there in case we get corrections
Nice.
for the next section. But on this insert, it was actually one of the first jobs I had was setting up, because it was a very high volume transactional database, and this is back in the day where we still had to worry about disk space. It's not like you kids that can now just go cloud and not worry. And I actually had to write a archiving mechanism where we archived the transactional data as it came in into a secondary database. It was still the same database server, but that meant that the transactional table didn't get heavy. Because remember, when you insert records, if depending what your natural sort order for the table is, it might need to go move things apart and then slot it into that gap over there. So I had to learn about how the tables actually store the data on disk and how do you start batching these chunks. Because remember, when you do a delete, it locks the table. And if you do a delete for too large of a range, it locks the entire table, not just the page of the data that you're dealing with. So it was very interesting for me to learn about these things and figure out how does this work, how doesn't it work, and learn about batching and temporary tables and joining that. And yeah, it's quite a lot of fun.
And now
Like-
it's everything is easier. Like even vacuum, Redshift does automatic vacuum, which to me is like, it's a bit like compared to old times when you would have to like think about all these things. It really does help.
Yeah.
For me, databases and all those things are so foreign. Like I had friends who were DBAs, and that was their job when I was a sysadmin, right? But databases were always like, hey, I just install a patch for this, and that's it. Everything else is like we would say in my language, it's a Spanish village for me.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm Spanish, just in case.
Yeah, I know exactly. So
I'm gonna just throw it there.
databases and analytics are a Spanish village to me. So
Nice.
No, it's this book behind me. It's actually, where is it here? This one.
that's the one. Yeah.
I have to hide behind otherwise control.
Oh, no, yeah.
But in case, SQL Server 2005. This is actually back from that time when it came out, because I was very focused on becoming a DBA, because that was still and it still is today. But I mean, obviously with cloud, that role has shifted a little bit, because you really needed to be an expert in databases to be able to run them at scale. And there was complex enough that you needed to have dedicated people to it. You still do for certain scenarios. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I still think DBAs are.
Oh yeah.
It's a role. I've never been a DBA, and I find it. Yeah, you need to have a specific profile.
Yeah, no, it's I had so much fun. It was like one of the things I enjoyed the most is like digging into how do I make these queries fast, and then you start looking at the execution plans and figure out how to build indexes, how it's accessing the data, the patterns exactly, and then you start tweaking it. And you sit there like, because the biggest project I had was doing a massive migration of the entire data shape, where we had a once-off shot to do it, and initially the migration took, I want to say, 25 hours to run, and then obviously we didn't want to be down for 25 hours because we had to lock because it was changing table shapes. And I managed to get it down to, I think, 4 hours in the end. But that was literally like running these massive jobs with, it was Microsoft SQL Server, and running the profiler for like more than a day, looking at all the queries, digging into, okay, but why is it doing a table scan and not an index? I've got an index there. And then, you have to give it hints, and it was a lot of fun.
How did you deal? Like, that's one of the things that and now more and more, because we democratize access to data, all these like cloud tools actually provide access to even non-technical users, which is great for the business in terms of anyone can get insights now from that data. But at the same time, it also brings new challenges on how do you control, as you said, like now anyone can you can give anyone access to Athena and they can start like running SQL queries. But not everyone has that knowledge on optimizing their queries. And we like one of the things I've seen in some companies is there are a lot of anti-patterns, and your platforms need to also take into consideration that you will have new users, not technical users, and maybe not so database-oriented users, and they are going to throw anti-patterns at your platform. Did you have to deal with that, or?
Yep, quite a lot. What it boils down to is you always will have this problem, and the expectation is you can't expect business people who are the ones that are mangling the data to get information out of it, because the process of doing these queries is we turn data into information so you can act on it. They've got different skill sets. You can't expect them to now become SQL experts. So the idea there is that you make it easier for them not to cause problems. So for example, the first easy thing is make sure that the database that they're hitting with their queries is not the production database, because that way they can't break production. So then it's a case of, they can't break it. So first thing is give them access to be able to do their job. Then the second is give them people that can help them optimize if it becomes a problem. Because if a query takes, let's say, 30 seconds and you can get it down to 200 milliseconds, that's great and it's impressive, but it might not have any business value, because they can click query, they have a sip or two of coffee, and they continue on their work without losing the thought process. So yes, faster is better, but doesn't always warrant it. Obviously, if it's something that takes days, then yes, get an expert in and help them with it. And then along the way, just show them a couple of things, because even if you spend time trying to explain how, for example, aggregates with having column or having clauses and things works and get really into the nitty gritty, at the end of the day, that's not their main focus. You can teach them today, but if they don't use it daily, they won't remember it in 2-3 weeks. So work with what works with their workflow and help them, rather than trying to change them.
I'm thinking more brutal ones, like using select star with a spectrum. Don't do that. Please do not.
No. I actually have there's a solution to that. Very simple. All you do is every table that you create has got a
just a column
generated column. No. There's one column that's generated, and you define that generated column as 1 divided by 0. Because unless you select that column and include it, it will never be evaluated. Because remember that projected column, I think that's what it's called, only gets evaluated when you query the data. So as soon as you do select star, it's going to give you a divide by 0 error, which means you can't use select star. As long as you don't select the column, as long as you don't select that column, you can get your data out.
You're
Very
evil.
Simple.
That is the eviliest thing I've heard.
I mean, abstractions, right? I think my approach would be to have abstractions on top of it, instead of having people write their own SQL code and do it themselves. Even though that's great, you want to make sure that, especially if somebody's querying a the petabyte size data warehouse, you don't want to select star. You maybe want to give them a few views or the ability to mix and match what they want to get, instead of just giving them raw SQL access. So that's how I would approach it.
That is also mine. Like give also the right tools for different teams or different people.
We are.
But that one was It's good to know. I'm happy that I'm on your side.
Absolutely. We are all, like, we like to give access to everything to everybody. Your freedom to choose how you wish to access data, but sometimes they're called guardrails. So
true.
So
noble.
Just quick side one here, Veliswa. Question about Snowball. No, unfortunately, it's not yet been released in the Africa region here in Cape Town. And for those that are interested, I'll pop the link to the regional services table, where you can have a look at what services are available where. But from my understanding, it's not launched yet when I look at this lists. So let me pop that in there for you. There we go.
Nice.
But the other interesting thing, since we're talking about databases, is I had a very interesting experience with a company where the developers didn't really understand databases because they made use of the language that they were building in that had a default ORM. And ORM, for those not familiar, is an object relational mapping. The reason is that most of the time you write code in object-oriented languages, Java, C#, there's a whole bunch of them. But then that has a mismatch in terms of how you represent the data inside the code versus how it's in the database. And then you need that object to relational mapping to do that for you. So they made use of this. That's how they built their tables. They didn't know about indexing or physical storage of the data or anything. And then what they did is they used the language to build a reporting engine instead of using external reporting tools for it. And they did this because you could just string different things together, go like person.addresses.street.find. You could express queries that way. And what happens in the background is it joins the tables onto each other and then makes the queries. The problem was that it did joins on many-to-many relationships. So it did these massive joins. And then also, because they didn't look at how the ORM did things, certain things like, for example, type tables. Instead of having a type definition table where you say 1 means house, 2 means flat, 3 means whatever, and using those numbers in the tables, it actually used the text to do that. And they didn't have indexing on the text either. So it was this weird thing where they didn't understand why the reports took like 15, 20 minutes to run, even though we're talking about maybe 50,000 rows, which for any modern relational database should be okay, boom, here's the data, where it took like minutes. And we're like, and then when I found that, it's like, oh, okay, cool, let's do a couple of database lessons. So always worthwhile understanding DBs and how it works.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So, Darko, you've been quiet. What have you been doing that's been fun this week?
What have I been doing? Oh, I've been working on I've actually delivered a workshop yesterday on the topic of serverless applications and how to build them with CDK. So, as some people may know, I'm a fan of infrastructure as code, as my brother in head and beard is as well. We like to talk, we like to talk about infrastructure as code because infrastructure is code. And I built this workshop for a user group in Australia. Basically, that takes you from building from scratch a serverless application, and maybe I can post it here as well, so I can. We said, Cobus, that I have to pay for each time I shill some of my personal content.
Every time on any of the non-Cobus Darko shows, if you want to reference your own content, you have to pay. So as well, if you want to, you're more than happy to.
I'm gonna put my website. I don't have a workshop.
Just quickly, money in the jar.
Yeah, so
we're going to use it to buy our viewers something.
It's $1. It's $1 per.
No, euro. We want a currency where you can buy something.
No. So yeah, that's been fun, and I've had a lot of fun with that, to be honest. It's the code itself I've done before. The one fun part about it was that
that's fun too.
Yeah, that's fun too. Yeah. So the fun part or the fart about it is that I've had to write this big old Markdown file, and the Markdown is the core of my workshop, and I had to write it in such a way that people can follow. So this was the first time I've written like a 700 line long Markdown file. So that was fun. And with fun part, I think it was great, and I had a lot of good feedback from people who seen that, and it helped me also to expand my CDK knowledge. On top of that, last week I've played with Terraform, which I
saw that.
I'm continuing today, I think. If I manage it, today is going to be my second stream on Terraform, or actually my third stream on Terraform. So I'm gonna have to expand my knowledge on it. And one of the things I figured out, and this is kind of a meta topic, is that I learn the best if I try to teach somebody. So one of the things I find is that I am trying to learn Terraform. I've never used Terraform, right? So, and I read the documentation. It's a rubber ducky method, right? Instead of talking to a rubber ducky on your desk, explaining your problem, I talk to the Twitch audience and telling them what I figure out, right? So I want to do variables in Terraform. I'm like, okay, let's see how variables are done. I look up documentation, and then I read it and explain it to Twitch, how it's done, and then I try it. It works, doesn't work, troubleshoot. So I found it very useful for myself when I keep on explaining to other people what I learned. So I'll keep on doing that. So if I want to learn something new, I'll just do it live on Twitch and try to explain it that way.
Oh, that's interesting.
You can talk to my very chirpy screen monitor.
What
this is a monitor stand. It's a screen. It's a normal screen
stand. Did you notice
stand.
that you're missing the core part of that?
Yes, but do you see how it's smiling at you? So I've got this actually on the back here that I use to when I debug something.
I found your monitor, Cobus. It's here.
We just need to put those two together, and we'll have a functional. Oh, I see.
Yeah,
but it's smiling.
I have a question for you that not Cobus. I was going to use your real name. Sorry. Now I have a question. Do
Yes.
you think that because for you it was you know a lot about cloud formation and it was the first time using Terraform, right?
No. Yeah.
Do you think it's a similar experience for users that are super familiar with Terraform and they have to look at cloud formation?
Uh, it's a different approach. So one of the
Right.
things, I would say that the Terraform language is much better. Right? So using Terraform's syntax is so much better than using CloudFormation's because even though it's a proprietary, specific domain-specific language (HCL),
Yep.
it has more functionality than just pure YAML and JSON. So
Right.
when it comes to writing things, it's easier. Now, when it comes to actually maintaining things or running it, there are some quirks on Terraform that I found that I find irritating. Number one, documentation is worse than CloudFormation's. So, for example, I'll give you a simple thing. You no. You create an EC2 instance. You create an EC2 instance in Terraform. I don't know what it outputs. What can I reference from that thing? I could not find any information in documentation when you go to resource EC2 instance. What are the outputs of it? Can I reference some things besides the instance ID? Or when I look up at parameters, I don't know what value should they be? Should it be a string? Should it be an int? Should it be a list? Should it be whatever, right? So those things are kind of missing, and that's something I found. But I may be wrong. I may be just reading the documentation badly.
I
Otherwise,
want to correct you there quickly. I'm just opening up the docs here
okay, go ahead.
because that's one. If literally on each resource, if you scroll down, there's a section at the bottom that says attributes,
Okay.
and it is very explicit with and very detailed. And that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with Terraform multiple years ago.
Okay.
Is because you've got that extremely detailed list of all the information about what you can see of each of the resources you're dealing with.
Then I may have missed it. So because like I've looked at it and I couldn't find like, okay, what is my resource output here, right? In general, you have the same. So when comparing Terraform and CloudFormation, whether you're going to use the two, you have the same functionality. So basically, it does the same thing. It creates resources in a very unopinionated way. So it gives you full control in the way you want to create things. Now, the difference here is like the language. Definitely, Terraform's language is much better than just using pure YAML and JSON. Although CloudFormation does things better when it comes to handling broken stacks. So with Terraform, I've had an example where I would take Cobus's stack or Cobus's Terraform code. I would deploy it. It would fail mid-run, and then I would just say, okay, whatever I could. I have to delete things manually. So it was a lot of manual process on that end, and also maintaining the data as well. What is this?
Quickly, so I'm just showing you. So this is documentation. If you always head down to the attribute reference portion,
Okay.
you can see over here, this is all the attributes that are exported. So this is where you can access, you can literally see every, and I'm going to scroll slowly a little bit because obviously this is one of the fun things. You can spin up an EC2 instance with, I believe, 4 lines of
Yeah.
Terraform. And obviously there's a lot more behind it in terms of the details, but you can always access all of it.
Okay. Like that's something I kind of didn't find. Like also like for the parameters, when it comes to like specifying a specific resource, saying, hey, I want to use this parameter. I wasn't sure what is it, right? What is that parameter? What is a string? Is it a list? Is it whatever, right? So those are things I kind of missed, but maybe that I missed them in my own discussion. Is my microphone bad? I see somebody complaining.
Yeah, someone asking, can one of the other people just confirm that? Because from our side, it sounds very normalized.
Okay.
But this is weirdness with StreamYard sometimes.
I may have been back.
Okay. We need to take this question quickly because otherwise we're going to have to get Isabel a full box set of Magnum PI to be able to communicate with us.
Wait. I can.
Terraform high-level service compared to CloudFormation. When it comes to Terraform, I would say they're equal. Like when it comes to the levelity, the level of infrastructure you want to deploy, they're both equal. So you define also the same exact things in Terraform and CloudFormation when it comes to you create a VPC. That's a great example. You create a VPC in Terraform and CloudFormation, and it will just create a blank VPC, nothing else. So it doesn't do any more abstraction on top of that. Where Terraform is good is when it comes to maybe some additional conditionals or reading stuff off disk. So it gives you some additional flexibility, but that's basically in the language itself. So that's what the benefit exists. But it's not somehow like, for example, if you talk about CDK takes a lot more abstractions, a lot more. It has a, how did we call it? It's a lot more opinionated. It has a lot more sensible defaults than CloudFormation and Terraform. When it comes to just pure infrastructure development, both Terraform and CloudFormation are on par when it comes to opinions on how things should be done. So I think we said this many times, right? If you ask me, should you use CloudFormation and Terraform? Yes, right? And somebody said this on Twitter, the best programming language is the one you know how to use, right? If you feel comfortable by using YAML and JSON and that's your jam, go nuts with CloudFormation, right? If you think HCL is a better fit for you, just use Terraform. It doesn't really matter as long as you're using it. Don't say, oh, it's so difficult for me to learn a language X or language Y. I'm not going to use infrastructure as code, because that's the one thing I would say, stop, don't learn something, right? It's very important.
Yeah. And I mean, just quickly also, so understand that CloudFormation and Terraform approach it in the same way, where they reference the base resources. So you've got building blocks, literally one-to-one mappings of the components you have in AWS. So for example, if you're setting up a VPC, there's a VPC resource, there's a subnet resource, there's a routing table resource, routing table association, etc., etc., etc. You've got that on CloudFormation as well as on Terraform, and it's just the way that you express it is different. Both of them also have mechanisms to wrap these into reusable blocks. So you can create something where you say, create me a VPC, and unless I give you the values, use the defaults specified. Where with CDK, a lot of that is automatically built in. Where with, for example, both CloudFormation and Terraform, you would have to go specify those unless using modules or stacks in CloudFormation. And then also, just last part of the question is the rate at which things are becoming available. Terraform being an open source project, they are an Amazon or AWS partner. So we do work with them. So for example, they had EKS support on the day that it launched, but it's also an open source project. So it does mean that depending on what the resources are that are being built, they don't always have insight to it before it launches like the rest of the public. So there will be a natural lag there. Having said that, CloudFormation is not always included. We're working hard to make it a launch requirement, but we're not there yet. So we are trying to keep CloudFormation up to speed as much as possible with new services.
And there's a very good reason for it not being available immediately. Because here's the thing. If you launch a very fresh new service, like completely brand new, something out of left field, like Honeycomb, right? You want to make sure that when you launch that service, we get the feedback from you, our customers, how that service should be used, right? And then based off of that, we tend to build APIs, right? Because APIs are forever. You want to make sure when you build an API, when you build Terraform or CloudFormation integration with such a service, that it's better to wait a bit and build a good integration with an API than having to create a V2 API for that service. So I'm all fine with CloudFormation not being available from day one. I wish it was for all the things, but I would much rather have implementation at a later date than have a bad API implementation. So that's kind of a thing.
So quick question about here, which is, sorry, Isabel, we're going to hide you completely unless you climb out. There we go.
I can
Peeking
still
at
like it.
This one is actually an interesting question, and it's very near and dear to my heart. I'll link it there in the chat, so I'll put some money in the jar. Thank you. Is a talk that I did specifically on this at HashiCon or HashiTalks for Africa recently, where you could look at how to do multiple accounts and actually how to flip with role switching inside your Terraform configuration, and then wrap that into a make file to make things simpler for you. That link to the video also has got the link to the public repo for the make file for you to use. So you literally would go env equals dev or prod, make plan, make apply, and then it knows how to flip between the different accounts and handle it for you, and you don't have to deal with that complexity.
That's cool.
That's very cool. I want to figure out how to do more multi-account things. So with CloudFormation, it's relatively simple. With Terraform, I haven't tried it, but I know that it's possible. And somebody asked me on the meetup yesterday they asked me how to do it with Terraform, and I check out my buddy Kobus. He talked about it. So I didn't paste any link or anything, but they know, I guess. I hope they know. And but
Well, I
I know
mean,
that CDK is also not capable of doing it natively. CDK has to do with CDK has to do it with how they call it profile switching. That's how it's done with CDK. So, but it's
yeah,
very
with Terraform,
important
you
we
can
have
actually do
support for
that profile switching with variables that you pass into it when you run it, or you can set up multiple providers as well. There are a couple of ways you can do it, so it depends on what you want to do. I prefer the role switching way because that relies then on your environment being configured correctly and not hard coding credentials or account IDs inside your applications.
That's
Yeah.
very cool. All right.
So data warehouses and infrastructure as code today. That was
What a mix.
Well, so
lots
we
of
never
fun.
talked about data warehouse on this stream. At least I don't recall. We never talked about
Look
data
at
per
that.
se here. So thank you very much, Isabella.
Oh, look at that. It's always a pleasure. Maybe that should be one of your streams. You should try to build a data warehouse with
So
Terraform.
I would love to do that.
Oh,
Like I would love to. So and also one of the smart streams I do, I basically go into a service. Now the thing is, I usually prepare to teach people about some basics of a service. So I may do something with data warehousing. Like I don't know how to demonstrate that. I've never worked. Like it would be me completely out of left
That could
field
be
talking
fun.
about it.
I,
Yeah.
I might be on the chat to like if you need
Okay.
like hints to point you to the right, to left, to left.
Exactly. I'll ask you to join the chat so you can just tell
Yeah.
me what to do properly.
But I think it could be useful. I think also like people building infrastructures and platforms of this
Yes.
type. Infrastructure as code is for everyone. It's not just the typical use cases. It's like everything you build on the cloud should be using. Everyone should be watching Cobus and Narco.
wait, hold on. That was a good promotion one, but you didn't add a link.
Oh
So
no, I'm no. You
do
totally
you put money in the jar?
I'm expecting to be
Fun.
invited again. I'm just like trying to earn my points.
No, don't worry. What I'll do is I'll invite you to some of our local Sub-Saharan Africa webinars because we've got some interesting ones coming up. I know Darko's done some. It was hilarious. We actually did a infrastructure as code series where I did the overview on day 1, he did day 2, I did day 3, and he did day 4. And in his sessions, he got some thank you quizzes. So
Yeah.
thank you. I'll take
Nice.
that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm gonna do next time. I'm gonna do a webinar where I look at your webinar. I'm gonna do a webinar where I record myself watching your webinar and comment on it.
Oh,
Would that be
brilliant.
good? That would be good.
That would actually be awesome.
Yeah.
We've got this thing where when travel opens up again, where Darko and I want to do a presentation, not pre-announced that it's together, but literally halfway through when the demo is running, I walk on stage and he walks off, and I continue the presentation just for
Oh,
fun.
nice. Just to see if someone notices. Nice. That is super
Yeah.
fun.
Cool. We are getting close to the end of the show. If there are any more questions, we can probably take like 1 or maybe 2 more, depending on how complex they are. So please send them our way. If you are watching on Twitch, there's normally about a 7-second delay. I know on YouTube it's more to 30 seconds. So if we do take a bit of time to react to it, that's why. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We need to get more different people on here more often because, I mean, Darko and myself will never talk about warehouses or data lakes unless someone else prompts us. We'll just keep banging on about CDK and Terraform.
Ah, see.
I can talk about lakes. There's a bunch of lakes here, so I can talk about lakes. And
I
I've been
like
in a
houses,
warehouse.
but like
I've been in a
physical.
warehouse,
Nice.
but not.
Well, that works too. I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah.
it's also entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of our approach, Ben. If it's not informational, at least it's entertaining.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
That works. That's good.
Yeah. No, but that's for tomorrow. Sorry, I forgot that. I try to get a dad joke ready for each session that Darko and I do, but I didn't do it on this show. So
Next time.
next time, I've been
good.
using my Yoda joke too much.
Also, tomorrow morning.
Oh, wait.
Tomorrow morning, Cobus.
Oh,
and myself,
gracias en español. Sorry, I had to interrupt you as I got excited.
of course. Tomorrow morning, Cobus and I have the shill ourselves, and this is we don't put money for this because this is ours. We do a stream tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central European summertime, or basically 2 hours before now. So make sure to join us. We're going to be doing more CDK live coding, and that is a bit different than this. It's more we're building something and we don't know how to do it well.
Well, as you
We
can
are-
see in the
we are-
background, I see a lot of red on your screen.
Yeah, so that's a stream from last time. So that's me suffering with some red stuff on my screen, and that's
Yeah. Yeah, almost. We've got 10 seconds because Darko's watch runs fast. And just to wrap up, an interesting stat with our team is that even though we tend to do a lot of our presentations in English, I think there are only 2 people on the entire team that have English as their first language, which is super interesting.
Yeah,
Indeed.
Yeah.
exactly. Just
Indeed.
to,
There are actually more
people, yeah.
Yeah, there are more people, more native Spanish speakers on the team than there are English, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. I think yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That's true. Oh my God, I never thought of that, but yeah. Gotta love the stats.
And with that, thank you, everybody.
you very much.
I'm going to end the broadcast now in a second or two. Thanks for joining us. And just remember, we do this every week, and we have different people coming in every week. I'm still trying to get the schedule to make sure that we've got a lot of variety, because I know as much as we like to see Darko, I don't like him stealing my thunder and letting people realize there are 2 of us. I like it that they think I'm him and he is me. So we will see who else is available next week for the show, and hopefully see you then.